Welcome to a very special RX Muscle tribute show to the late Bob Gruskin, one of the original diet gurus in our bodybuilding world. I have an all-star cast here today to pay tribute to Bob. You know, I always try to get Bob on the show for the last 5 or 10 years, actually. I've been trying to get Bob on, and Bob just was such a private guy, he just wouldn't do it. Chris Aceto asked him, every person I know who asked him, and he just didn't want any fanfare or accolades. And so I guess this is the next best thing. This is our tribute to Bob Gruskin. I want to just introduce our guests. Of course, we have the technician, Chris Aceto, here with us today.
I'm so happy to have this, Dave. You know me on the radio. I always talk about Bob like nonstop, and you know, the impact that Bob has had on people's lives is it's stunning. You know, all of us are kind of like his adopted sons. Absolutely. And I'm sure you'll hear from these guys that the positive impact, not only as bodybuilders, but as people that he's had on us has been, I mean, I do things with my kids that he did with me, or I try to teach them things that I learned from him. So without taking up, you know, I want to hear what these guys have to say about Bob.
We'll go around the horn.
Listen. We'll
go around the horn. I want to introduce also all the way from, I think you're in North Carolina, John DeFendis, right?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Mr. Intensity or Insanity, John DeFendis, of course. He's been here before. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to be on here with these great champions and friends of mine over the years. And we all have that one bond, that one thing in common. Bob Gruskin, who's helped all of us. I first met Bob at the Teenage USA. I trained on my own for the show, and I was going up to Massachusetts actually it was a Teenage America. I was going up to Massachusetts to win, so I thought when I got there. And I was backstage, get ready to pump up. I had this powder blue sweats on, and I unzipped the zipper. I'm pumping up, and I look in the mirror, and I'm like all thinking, I'm going to win this show. I'm the best teenager in my neighborhood. So James Yasenchik walks behind me. I don't know if any of you guys know who James Yasenchik was. He was 6'2", 220 ripped, and he trained with Menser. And I said, that guy's a teenager, and I laughed. Oh yeah, right. He goes, no, that guy's a teenager, and I deflated. And, needless to say, I got my ass blown off the stage. My brother, who was a great champion, he was a 2-time All-American wrestler. He put his arm around me as I was walking out the back of the auditorium after prejudging, and he said, I just want to let you know you're a disgrace. You embarrass me. I'll never. So I'm sitting in the audience. Afterwards, like feeling completely deflated. And Bob comes over and he sits next to me, and he leans over. He says, "You're in the show, huh?" I said, "Yeah, but you wouldn't know it. I was up there somewhere." Behind Jim Yasenchik, was 3 of him, 1 of me. And Bob grabbed my arm, and I pulled my arm away. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I see what kind of shape you're in, And I was actually rude to him, I was like, "Get away from me, But he grabbed my arm, And then he started to explain, well, I write for the magazines and this and that. And all of a sudden I went from, pulling my arm away to, really, you write for the magazines? Maybe you can write a story on me, And that's really how we met. And, the relationship from there, I was just a young teenager. And he took me under his wing. And he, one day, like a truck pulled up to the house and they had a bunch of gym equipment that Bob bought me I didn't even know about. And, the stories are unbelievable. And I want to give everybody a chance to really share their stories. But this man changed my life. He, I have, cards and letters. I mean, just tons and tons of cards and letters sitting here. And every single letter and every single card I wrote him, I said, I want to be Mr. America. I know you can help me. Please help me. Please, that's my goal, This one right here, where it says, I dedicate my future American victory to a good friend, Bob Gruskin, and help and guidance. I mean, I wrote all these things. I'm looking back. I didn't remember this. He flew to Arizona to see me. I stood there like an idiot at the airport with this thing.
You still have that?
Welcome to Phoenix. But I got this entire file, this shit in here I don't even know. You know.
Wow,
I'm
you saved
looking
everything,
back,
Johnny.
You know, and then the pictures that were sent to me last week that were in Bob's file, I posted on Facebook. Not only do I not remember the pictures or never seen the pictures, I don't even remember taking the pictures, you know?
That's funny.
I mean, he had us doing so many things, going here, going there, taking photos and developing crap in his lab in City College, which I was scared to death going, this is like Harlem, and I thought we were going to get killed going there, you know? And he had me in the lab. I said, yeah. He said, I could get your pictures, but I need you to come with me and help me. God, I tell my girlfriend's a photographer. I'm telling her we sat there dunking the shit in the trays, taking them out, hanging them up one picture at a time. I'm like, my God, it was crazy. But the memories are unbelievable. The man, there's no man greater on the planet in my entire life than this man who's done more for me. I'd be nowhere if it wasn't for him. And I just, you know, it was a sad day yesterday when I found out he passed. I just 5 or 6 days ago, and you know, I thought he was okay, and unfortunately, it was tragic. So
yeah, that's great tribute, John. Let's go to, for those of you who don't know, Bob had fallen and was in a rehab place, and I think he contracted coronavirus there, and he passed at the rehab place. Let's go to Gerry Scalisi, who also had a very, you know, Gerry's been on the show many times before. He's done Bros vs. Pros at his gym. Gerry, talk to us about how the first time you met Bob.
Well, it's kind of from John. I was going into teenage colonial America, and a friend of mine knew John from Hicksville High School, and I went down to John's brother's deli at like 10 o'clock while everything was closing up. We were in the back room while the fire was going on the oven, and he was cooking, and John gave me a posing routine in the back of the deli at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I got to the colonial America. I got a call from Bob. He says, I got a call from John DeFendis. He says, you're pretty good. And from there, that's where it started. I met Bob at the colonial America. And from there, 42 years later, I mean, Bob was like a father figure. I mean, he spent many a times at my house, loved my mom's cooking. I just, you know, going over the house, taking the trips. I know you guys remember, he was always late. We'd be running to the plane with his pants falling. They know. You know, suitcase, the pens in his pocket, a little cigar.
Pocket protector.
Yeah, the trips were unbelievable. You know, to the universe, the America, just everywhere we went, there was total memories everywhere. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you one funny story. Jeff, you guys know Matt.
Yep.
You know, after the universe, you went from Walters down to do the video down in London.
Yep.
And, you know, you shoot for 4 fucking hours, and you're like, man, when is this going to fucking end? And, you know, so Bob goes, who do you want to thank? So I start thanking people. And, Jeff, you remember Dr. Venus?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, so Bob, like I never took any vitamins or stuff for a show or protein powder. So Bob's in the back going, pension, and so I start talking about this egg albumin and all, and I'm like fucking up, and all of a sudden I say in the camera, I go, screw that, I never took a vitamin or a supplement for any of these shows, and Bob's giving me that look, and so, you know, so we come off, and if you guys remember, when Bob got made, he goes, you little fucker. Yeah. And, you know, we had a good laugh about that. But, yeah, yesterday was, I don't know, still surreal that he's gone. And just so many memories. Just the trips, staying over the house, him feeding you. When you first walked through the door, you're hungry. That was the first thing he said, throwing turkey burgers on the stove. And downstairs, posing downstairs with a puddle of water for hours.
Yeah, we never told them the turkey burgers sucked, but
when you were starving to death, they would taste delicious.
We just ate them, you know. It's like, okay, whatever.
And you guys know we were all perfectionists because of him.
Yep.
He didn't stand for anything else, and I don't know. Like I'm glad you guys are on. I haven't seen you guys. Johnny, I talked to, Chris and Dave. I listen to you guys all the time. And Chris, I do remember you were there that day before or 2 days before. We left for the amateur universe. I remember, and you asked me if I did cardio, and I just looked at you. Oh, wow. But yeah, just thanks for having me on, Dave. I love your show, and I love all you guys. We're all a family.
Yeah,
that's it.
A lot of years. It was great.
Now,
Well, Jeff King disappeared off the face of the earth.
oh yeah, don't ruin my surprise yet, Johnny. Johnny, quiet down for a second. I'm still introducing all you guys. Then you guys can talk. All right, and now the two most elusive people that I don't think a lot of people have been exposed to are going to be our next guest that we're going to introduce. The next one is Matt Dufresne, who a lot of people don't know. Matt, give us your story about how you met Bob. But first, tell us some of the titles you won, because a lot of people might not know who you are.
I don't spend a lot of time reviewing bodybuilding.
I'm putting your
Dave.
pictures up because you had some freaky shots that Bob took of you, man. I remember those most muscular shots and double bicep shots that were in that Muscle Training Illustrated. I remember when I was a kid, growing up, man, watching those magazines.
You don't have to be humble, Matt. You were great. Let it go.
I always tell people, and my wife Lisa, I say, you realize that I'm the only Mr. Universe that had no triceps, no calves, and no upper pecs. It's all about disguising how you pose. It's all about that. So I met Bob in 1983 officially. I'd seen him at Jeff King's Collegiate Mr. America in Connecticut. We were down there with a troupe of Springfield College people, just,
another Springfield
screaming.
College guy? Oh, my God.
Oh, I'm not. Jeff was. But I had
Chris,
a lot of
too.
friends of mine that went there. And so we went down to cheer on the people that were there. I think Larry Tyler was in that show as well, right, Jeff?
Yeah, he was there. Yep.
And it was really close. Well, not really close, but it was between you and Larry at the very end, and we were all screaming our guts out for Jeff. But Bob Gruskin was there, and everybody's, whoa, that's Bob Gruskin, trainer, champions. And so fast forward to 1983, I still have the Muscle Up magazine that Bob took the picture of me in, and if people that know me, Jeff and Chris, they know I kind of speak my mind, and I can be an asshole sometimes. So I basically was rude to Bob. And you're like, well, you need me to sell your magazine. Now, I'm soaking wet, 165 pounds. Backstage at the Teenage Mr. Bay State, Teddy Lopes just kicked the living shit out of me because he literally was like the guy that you said, John, 220 and ripped.
Freak, Matt. He was a freak.
He was a freak.
I remember him.
He always was a freak, Teddy Lopes. I was so thankful I never competed with him, in a bigger show. But Bob said hello. I was really lean, took some pictures, and we didn't really kind of connect. And then fast forward about 9 months later, I came in quite a bit heavier at the Teenage Mr. Mass. Again, Teddy Lopes, met Bob Gruskin again, and we started to connect. And finally, I think he went to the Teenage Mr. America in Fresno. I was able to win that. And at that point, I trained alone, but he and I had committed that we were going to work a little bit together. That was kind of as far as I got. And that turned out into a relationship where every year I would connect with him. Hey, this is the show I'm thinking about going into. What do you think? And he would counsel me from afar. He introduced Chris and I. Of course, Jeff was the guy that almost made me quit bodybuilding. And I'll tell you the story. So, and I'm not trying to take up all the time because I know you want to give the use of Jeff. But we were training, Jeff and I, at a place called Big Daddy's Gym in Springfield, Mass. Had lots of bodybuilding champions. Literally, the phrase is when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I mean, that's where that place was. I can remember being dropped off by my mom and dad at 15 years old, no license, to train at Big Daddy's. Jeff is in there with Carl and a few other big guys training for the Collegiate America and eventually the Mr. America. And he was so big and so shredded and so freakish that more than one, yeah, shut up. It's true, you asshole. So on more than one time, I walked out the gym. I literally left the gym because I was like, no, how could I do that? That's not even possible. It's not possible. Chris, you remember those days, seeing it's just, he's literally doing one arm rows and he's got his other arm on the bench and it's got like fork marks all through it. And you're just like, I'm out. I'm leaving. And then thank God Jeff won the America and never showed up again. So he never came back to the gym for like 5 years. And people like Chris and I could say, oh, okay, that didn't really exist. It was a dream. I can keep trying to train. So through Bob Gruskin, I met Jeff King. And Chris Aceto came down to Springfield College, and Bob Gruskin introduced us. And Chris, I'm not going to rat out the technician except for this little thing. So when Chris first came to Springfield, he was training at a volume that was, pretty absurd, right, Chris? I mean, looking back, you can say, whoa. So Chris comes to the Springfield College. He's a freshman. Bob introduces us to train together, and he's doing like 35 sets for biceps. and yeah.
Why so little?
So Chris, I hope you're not pissed off at me. You
are. DeFendis thinks that's a small volume amount. Yeah.
I look at him and I look at Bob and I go, yeah, I don't do anything past 9 sets. I mean, I'll train with you, but I'm done at 9. And we keep going back and forth. And Chris is a passionate guy. He's really intense. He's not getting good pumps because he's not doing the volume, and he's freaking out. And all I'm doing there is saying, I think you're overtrained. And I think if you give it some weeks or time, it'll come back. Literally in about 6 weeks, he starts working out, and after the second set, he gets such a pump he can't even move his arm. Like from 30 sets to 2, and he goes, it hurts so bad. What's going on? I go, this is what you were supposed to feel for the last. So Bob Gruskin introduced me to Jeff King. He introduced me to Chris Aceto. Chris eventually lived at our house. Remember that? You lived at our house for a year?
I loved it, Matt. It was like 50 below zero in the wintertime. I've told that your parents didn't heat the house in the winter.
It was thermogenic, So he lived at our house for a year while he went to Springfield College. It was a great time. And then Bob and I started hooking up. And he actually did train me fully for the Mr. USA. That was in Iowa. I won that. Bob Gosh went out to that for the tall class. I won the overall. And, my aspirations were to win the Mr. America or Mr. Universe like some other jerk did a few years before in the same year. Who would that be? I don't know. Maybe the guy in the left corner. In 1989, I went to the Mr. America in Worcester. That was very lucky for me that it was in my backyard. And then 2 weeks later, I went on to the Universe. And Bob was that guy. I remember I went with Casey to the Universe. He and I won our classes in the America. We went to the Universe, and I posed for my individual and the short class. Which, by the way, now that it's in history, I can say that I am actually too tall for. But hey, that's the way it is. The way that happened is Bob knew everybody at the NABA Universe. So he goes, look, I don't want you and Casey going in the same class. And we would have been in the same class. No flipping way that we wouldn't have been. So he goes, here's what I want you to do. And so I go up to the height board and I put my heels right against the wall and I bow my hips out forward like nobody's business, and my head drops 3 inches while Bob keeps talking to the guy who's doing the measurement, and he's got him so distracted. Yeah. And the guy looks down at my heels, and he looks at the top of my head, but Bob's got him distracted, and I'm a short class guy now. No joke, more than one judge said, he looks a little tall, and everybody goes, no, he's that's his height check. He's good. He's just at the very top of the class. So thankfully, but I can remember I was at the Universe. I'm sitting in the back hallway, like away from it was in Wembley Arena. It was one of the last times it was at Wembley. The theater is in front of me through the doors. I'm in the concourse out front. And Bob walks over to me, and he crouches down, and as I'm sitting on the floor, and he goes, how does it feel to be the next Mr. Universe? And I remember just looking at him, and my eyes got big, and I started tearing up, and I'm like, you can't say that. You can't say that. Come on. And he just pats me on the shoulder, and he walks away. And I think more than one of us here has felt that, where he's going, mm-hmm. You won the show, and you're like, no way, no effing way. How can you know that? But Bob was Bob, and he picked us out. So it was a great honor. My career was short and bright for various reasons, which we won't go into. But,
another interview, yeah.
But knowing Bob and being able to meet these champions. And being part of this group, it was a special time, man. It was a crazy special time in our lives.
All right, let's go. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Matt. Let's go to our final guest. He's one of the most elusive guys I call in bodybuilding, because I've been trying to get him on our show for 10 years now, and thank God we got him here for the Bob tribute. Jeff King, you probably, I don't know if you were Bob's favorite, definitely one of his favorites for sure. I know a lot of people felt that you could have been Mr. Olympia if the timing had been right. I know Bob felt that you could have beaten Lee Haney. Talk to us how you met Bob and how you got involved with him.
Yeah, it's funny, I got into bodybuilding. We had a bunch of guys down in Jersey. We had a gym in a cellar, and we got the magazines. Used to get, I think it was Weeder's first. It was Muscle and. Can't remember the name of it.
Muscle Builder.
Muscle. Is that what it was? It was when it was really before it became.
Muscle Builder.
Muscle Builder Power.
Yeah, that's right. So Robbie Robinson and all my heroes. So I guess I was the first turkey. The guys that were in the cellar. I was 17. Said it was the teenage New Jersey. My whole goal was I just wanted to win a trophy. So they're all saying, "Oh, you got to go in. You got to go in." So I can't remember. It was Northern New Jersey. I went there, and actually Mike Antorino was in that show. And he, at the time, I thought he was a freak. He had a big snake tattooed on his back, and he was huge. And he wore glasses the whole time. It was, now, it's something Bob would never, Bob would have went crazy about. And so I went in the show, and I ended up placing third. So, this short guy walks up to me and says, "Hey, you look good. You got a lot of potential." Now, I'm thinking I have no potential. But I've got a trophy. That's what I thought about. So, and then the first thing he does is, this was like in between prejudging. I had on the Speedos. What else do you wear? And he looked at my trunks. He goes, "You got to get rid of those." So he said, "I have a bunch." You know how Bob, guys, how he always traveled. He had like 900 pairs of trunks.
Yep.
He had the bag of trunks. So I ended up putting them on. He goes, "Yeah, these look good." So I ended up getting the trophy. So then he said, he told me who he was. I'm a photographer, and I think he got potential. He said, "How would you like to go to the Night of Champions in New York?" And I think that was in May, and the show was in April. And I said, I was only 17. I said, "Well, I'd love to." And he said, "Well, let me call your parents." So he called my mom and dad, and they ended up putting me on a bus. And I remember ending up going. I'd never been in New York in my life, in the city. And I go up the escalator. First, I had gum. I was wearing my father's clothes because I didn't have anything nice. And I had these gum shoes on, the gum sole. I got caught on the escalator. And then, of course, as I came to the top after coming off the bus, I was swarmed by the Hare Krishnas with their books. And all of a sudden, the crowd separates, and here comes Bob to the rescue. Because I didn't know, I was out of my element, man. So he swooped me up, and we ended up going to went to the night champions, and it was awesome. I saw all my idols, and I met. I don't know if John, you were there. I was telling John earlier. I remember.
Jeff, I got a picture with all of us in there. Me, Mike Quinn, Dan Morrow, Conzo Brothers. I just posted it up last week.
Wow. Yeah, and see, I'm around these other guys, like all of these guys, and it was actually Gerry. I remember a funny story. I remember you scared the hell out of me. We were going through the city. You were driving like a maniac.
Gerry, no way.
And all of a sudden, and Bob's in the back with me. This is hilarious. I don't know. Some guy did something. Gerry starts screaming like he's going to get out of the car and kill this guy. And Gerry's a huge guy, So I'm in the back. I'm just quiet. I look at Bob. He goes, "Don't worry about it. It's okay. Don't worry about it." But the one thing about Bob is that, and I think everyone can agree, is he had an eye for bodybuilding talent, obviously.
Yes.
But he didn't just have an eye for that. He had an eye for people. And it's funny. I would introduce them to friends of mine that I trained with. He goes, "Oh yeah, he's okay." Bob just, I don't know, he had a great heart. He knew goodness. And I think even, as somebody mentioned, how, he would stop and give some money, and you say, "What are you doing?" You go, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." And some of I never would have traveled probably. Like I remember going with Danny Morrow down to the Teen America, the Teen USA. And Bob always booted he just always booted the bell. I remember saying, "Bob, you can't take me here," and he's like, "Don't worry about it. I'm a college professor. I got a bonus." Or something crazy.
Right.
And I don't know what college professors get a bonus, But going to the universe, he used to drive my mom crazy, because he'd come to the house, he'd come down to the shore and stay there. And my mother would make a bed for him, but he would never use the bed, and he'd always fall asleep on the couch.
That's like Chris. That's where you get it from, Chris. Chris won't sleep in a bed. He sleeps on the couch when I'm with him.
Yeah, and he says, no, Ev, I'll be fine here. And my mom's like, "Well, geez, Bob, I really would like you to sleep in the bed." And she'd always have to pick up RC Cola for him.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time with that guy, and the one thing too about him is, he walked a dangerous line, because all of us were competitive. All of us wanted to be the best in bodybuilding. I mean,
Sure.
That was one common thread in everybody here, Gerry, John, Matt, Chris, and yet he befriended all the competitors that were actually, we were going against each other. And
Yes.
And all he ever did is he had nothing but a kind word to say about any one of you guys. And he would tell it the way it is. He'd say, "Geez, you're a little off," and when he said it, you were crushed.
Crushed.
You knew you were off. And Gerry, I remember you were. I think I was in the Pro Universe, or I can't remember.
1988.
Yep. And I remember seeing you. You were in incredible shape. I mean, just beyond. And I just, I looked at him. I go, "So you had to bring him, huh?"
Oh, so Gerry beat you, Jeff, at that show?
I don't know. I think I can't remember. I don't even remember the results. I don't. Maybe Gerry remembers. I don't remember. I just know. Or I might have been in the Pro. I don't remember. Were you in the Pro then, Gerry?
Yeah, the Pro Universe was 88. I took second to Charlie.
Did you beat Jeff that year?
Yes.
Shut up.
Truthfully, I should have beat Charlie too.
Yeah, you were in great
You're talking
shape
about
then.
Charles Claremont, yeah.
Yeah, he was a great shape. But either way, I just think, Bob was able to manage that. And, he put himself in an awkward position. But like I said, he always managed up. He just was, he knew how to pick people. And I think, like you said, I would have never known John. I mean, John, when I first was with Bob, that's all I ever heard. It was about John DeFendis. And then, for a while, I forget who brought up Johnny Mandich, but I remember when John Mandich got a little bit in trouble, and Bob just would always go see him. He paid for an attorney for him.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's funny because when we first met, and Bob had me write out some workouts for you. I don't know if you remember, Jeff.
Yes, I do. And they were insane.
I'm right. Yeah, I gave you the low volume on the 35 sets that Chris and Matt was bitching at him for. Like if a good thing Matt didn't train with me, it'd be like, what is this?
Oh my God.
The 88 set.
Yeah.
Jerry, no.
Yeah.
Jerry,
I heard yours
people
and
say this.
Mahalik workouts were crazy.
Well, people say this. Well, you did, 60 sets or 50 sets or 40 sets, but you use like 10-pound dumbbell lightweight, right? I'm like, fuck you, lightweight.
Bob used to bring all the guys to train me down.
First time I trained with Mahalik, I go in and he says we're going to do chest. He grabs I'm used to doing 40-pound dumbbell flies. I'm 16 years old. So he grabs the 60s and he does 12 reps. So I go to grab the 40s and he goes, what are you doing? And I'm grabbing the dumbbells. I'm doing flies, right? Not with those fucking weights. You grab those weights. That's what I grab, the 60s. So I don't know what to do. I never picked up the 60s. So I pick up the 60s, and I kill myself. I get 12 reps, barely. He grabs the 100s. Now, as he's picking up the 100s and he's doing the 100s, I'm thinking, do I fucking leave right now? Well, what do I do? Because I'm going to grab the 100s, which I can't even pick up off the rack, and my arms are going to rip out, right? I think they're going to rip out of my rib cage, right? So he does 12 reps with the 100s, he puts them back, and I'm standing there dumbfounded like an idiot. He goes, grab the dumbbells. I said, and I want to migrate back to the 60s. He's pointing to the 100s. I take the 100s off, my shaking them, put them on my legs like this, and I'm shaking. I go back, right? And he says, you when I hesitated, he said, you're either training with me or you get the fuck out of the gym. And
wow.
And he said, you're not. I'm not. You're either training with me or you're not. You leave. Don't ever come back. If you walk out that door, don't ever come in. Jerry knows how Steve was. Steve was a psychopath. Every time I came in the gym, he handed me black beauties. I go over to the water fountain. I'm 16 years old. The guy's hitting me black beauties.
What was the black beauty? The black beauties were the ephedra pills, right?
They weren't ephedrine. They were.
We would take the dexedrine too.
Oh, they were real speed.
I'm going to the water fountain, throwing the black beauty behind the water fountain. My mom told me, don't take drugs. Don't take drugs.
John, remember the dexedrine?
Yeah, I'm throwing it behind the water fountain.
Pure speed, you were shaking.
Every time I was throwing it behind the water fountain, I'm thinking in my head, I'm fucking dead. I'm dead. This guy's going to kill me. He's mad. He would come into the gym angry. And Bob was the yin and the yang. Bob and Steve were the yin and the yang. If I listened to Steve, I would have been dead 20 years ago. Right? But every time Steve told me to do something, I go back to Bob and go, Bob, Steve, are you out of your mind? What are you, crazy? Steve, one time, Steve said he took these 2 bottles out. He put it on the counter. He says, yeah, I just got these. Here, this is yours. You take this. I take this. Take 2 a day. All right. 2 weeks later, he goes, hey, you taking that shit I gave you? Yeah, how do you feel? I feel okay. He goes, okay, I'll take mine then. He takes his new bottle out. I didn't even open it yet. Right? I was the experiment. I kept having to go back to Bob and go, Bob, Steve told me to do this. Steve told me to eat this. Steve told me to do it. Bob will go, John, train with Steve, listen to me. So, Steve would beat the shit out of me. Bob would give me the advice on everything else,
Yeah, funny.
But what I was saying about you, Jeff, is I remember writing out those workouts. Bob asked me if I would help you. I wrote out those workouts for you. And then it was 1983, the night I won the Western America. You were with Bob. You won the Mr. America.
Yeah.
And I called Bob, or Bob called me, and he said, "Hey, Jeff won the Mr. America." And I'm like, "Well, fuck! I won the Mr. America. I run the guy's workouts like 7 years, however many years ago. I'm like, man, I screwed up somewhere. This guy's Mr. America. I'm still winning the regional shows, you know."
Hey, John, do you remember too? We were in you know how Bob, he'd walk the streets. We'd go every other. You hungry? We'd go into a steak place. But I remember sitting there, and I remember saying to Bob, "Is he going to write me a workout?" And I remember that was it. Fine, you were cornered. We're in the restaurant, and you rolled me out the workout.
Oh, that's how you got it? Oh my God. That's funny.
What's that?
Good thing you didn't talk.
You got
to
him in the
Max.
restaurant. That's when he wrote the workout.
Matt would have went like this. What the hell is this shit?
Well, John, people don't realize there was no cell phones. You couldn't text a workout to someone or email it. You either had to see it in person or you had to mail it.
We sat down and wrote it out by hand in some steak place. I remember. I was writing it out by hand. Okay, now do inclines.
Yeah.
Any of you guys remember going to the Italian place in the Bronx with the zuppa di pesce?
Yeah,
It was
Frankie
literally a
and
bowl.
Johnny.
It was the
Frankie and
bowl
Johnny's, the Pine Tavern.
That's it. The
What was it
Pine
called, Jerry?
Tavern, right.
With the pesce.
Yeah,
That was it. First time I had
still
zuppa
gone
di pesce.
there.
It was like this big. You know?
Yeah,
The
it was
zuppa di pesce-
exactly, John.
The zuppa di pesce was bigger than Jerry's fucking legs.
You had to take home the lasagna. The plate was too big. It was the size of the plate.
And you remember, Bob could never eat shellfish.
Oh, because he was kosher, right?
Hospital.
And when my mother would cook, he'd always come up and he'd say, "There's no shellfish in there, is there?" And she's like, "No, Bob, there's no shellfish." And he would taste it. And then he'd be okay.
Why couldn't he eat shellfish?
I don't know. He
He had allergies.
Guys,
Chris.
Do you remember the Chinese restaurant under the L there, the train station we used to go to in Westchester Avenue?
Jerry, you're alone on that one.
Jerry, I remember, and he'd say steamed, and the shit would come out fried, and you'd be on a diet.
And his famous words be, "Watch the sodium, watch the sodium."
That's right.
Who here? Who in this panel?
The diner around the corner. I mean, that was the big thing.
It's still there.
The Pelham Diner.
Yeah, the Pelham
I
Diner.
bet it's the Pelham Diner. Guys, I actually lived around the corner from Bob, right off of Eastchester, Pelham Parkway, Eastchester Road there, for a year and a half when I was in medical school. I just really got into bodybuilding. I didn't know I was around the corner from Bob. 5 years later, Doug Wentz took me to Bob's house, and I had moved back to Long Island at that point, and I was bodybuilding full time. And I said, "Doug, I used to live here." He's like, "You lived around the corner from Bob. You didn't even know it." I said, I would have been at his house every day if I would have known he was there. It's crazy. Chris, talk to us a little bit about what the experience was like staying at Bob's house.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, just one thing.
Yeah.
I am at work. I actually have a meeting I got to run in about 2 minutes. So, yeah, I hate to go. This is outstanding.
Jeff, have you ever stayed at Bob's house?
Oh God, yeah.
Give us what a
all of
typical
us.
day at Bob's house, a typical experience was staying over at Bob's house.
Well, first he always
There you go.
used to say, "You didn't relax, you relapsed," and you'd sit in his chair. He had a chair down there,
Yep.
and he'd putter around. He had 100 file cabinets,
Yep.
and he would just cook. He'd make for you. You hungry? You hungry? You need something to drink? Or you can't have that. No, you can't have that. And
Don't forget the mirror. Don't forget the mirror, Jeff.
And also the other thing that was killer is he'd spend hours and hours. You'd be exhausted. It'd be 3 a.m. He'd be taking fade. He had that Hasselblatt's or whatever that other stupid camera was, and he would stretch it out to the end until you just wanted to strangle him. And they go, "One more, always one more." No, one more. And then after we'd spend that, you'd call like 6 months later, you say, "Hey, did you ever get any of the photos developed?" No, I didn't get them yet. It was torture. Yeah, it was torture. But yeah, it's great memories. I didn't know how Bob went. I heard he fractured his hip. I heard he was in a nursing home, and if he got sick from this thing that I'm in a hospital. That's what I'm working with now. it's tragic. I just can't believe it. But you know, I think we all share a love for a great guy. You know, when I was doing the bodybuilding, he always said, keep your focus. He said, you need to go to school, Jeff. You can't do this forever. And, you know, part of who I am is part of him.
Absolutely.
Well, amen to that. Jeff, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you guys, man. You know, it's just
Jeff, we're going to catch up.
Take care of
Great
yourself.
to see you, brother.
Jeff,
Yeah,
at least-
you know, I gotta, now that I have some access to you, I'll have to reach out.
Yeah, Jeff, we'll get you on the show for a full-blown interview a little later. Now that I got your cell phone number, I could torture you a little bit.
I love
And
it.
you got
got it,
Skype, and
dude.
you have Skype now. You know, it's funny, when
Yeah.
I went to Bob's house, the one time I went there, I had I was in medical school for 3 years, and I had taken a year off, and I was bodybuilding, and Doug Wentz took me to see Bob. He was going to assess my potential. I posed for him, and my friend Doug walked. He said, "Doug, go to the bathroom, or go in the other room." And Bob's like, "I think you should go back to medical school." That's what he told me. He's like, "You should go back to medical school." I said, "What do you mean, Bob?" He goes, "I don't think you can win your class at a national show." I said, because I asked him, I wanted his honest opinion, and he said, "But prove me wrong." And luckily for me and the gods above, I did prove him wrong, and he did say, "You were the only person who ever proved me wrong." But he did tell me to go back to school. So my wife said I should have listened to him, but you know how that goes. Thank you,
Dave,
Jeff.
Dave, text me Jeff King's phone number because I want to get back some of my workouts. I forgot.
There you go. That's right.